Hey gardening friends, welcome to my garden. It's been a few weeks, so I thought I'd give you a little update on what's happening in the garden. I've been going through and doing a lot of cleanup, and in the process, a lot of things have started to really leaf out. So this is on the front of the house, which I don't show very often. This is a bush, I think the Deutzia, and it's a very old. I'm sure this bush is at least 30 years old, and it's about to bloom. It needs to be trimmed back. It's really overgrown its space, but I'm going to let it bloom this year, and then I'll go through and trim everything back. And then on this side of the step, I have a white azalea, which is beautiful, but I also have sections of this that has died out. And again, this is another one of those bushes that have been here for decades. So it just may be at the end of its life. Not sure. I'll come through and just trim all of this dead out and see what it does next year. And if not, we may have to replace it. But I have the white azalea on one side of the step and then this white Deutzia. And you can see the blooms. Some of them have started to bloom out. And then right next to it is where I have this shade bed, which is mostly hostas. I do have some Brennera. Brennera is a great plant for a shade garden. It blooms in early spring and it blooms for weeks and weeks. I think these have been blooming for at least 3 weeks at this point. Most of the hostas are pretty well leafed out. I haven't touched this bed probably in about 3 weeks, so I'll still have to come back and clear out some of the weeds that have popped up that you can see back in this area. There's some weeds here, so I'll come through and do another weeding shortly. But then on the east side, everything has really leafed out. Well, again, I haven't really touched anything in this area in about 3 weeks. So still need to do some weeding. I see right here, this is a snapdragon that I planted last year that has come back. There's also some gladiolas that I planted many years ago, and they keep coming back, so I'm happy to see that. And then right there's the bindweed. There's the bindweed growing up my gas meter. So the bindweed is really, there's some more in that area. It's really all over. And as I mentioned in another video, this year I'm really trying to stay on top of it. Just pulling it just only seems to make it angry and make it spread. So this year I'm just going to come through and I cut it, and then I paint the cut end with the Bonide stump and weed killer, and I want to see if that will make a difference this year. So I try to unwind them from the plant, and then I'll come through later and cut those and apply the weed killer. I have a few alliums. I don't remember the variety, but they're blooming very nicely, and I think these have multiplied. I don't remember planting this many, so they've been here for about 3 years, but it looks like they've really multiplied. This is a rose bush. Again, one of those plants that was here when I moved here. Very old, probably 30, 40 years old. I think it got a little attacked by the late frost that we've had, but otherwise it's looking pretty good. All of these little seedlings that you have here, I believe this is the sweet alyssum, which is not where I want it to be, but I'm going to let it grow up a little bit and then I'll transplant it to another part of the yard. This is lavender. This is the Provence French lavender. And I talked about this in another video. I did cut it back, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to dig this out and replace it with something else. In the meantime, you can see the bindweed just loves it. And it's now all over the bindweed that quickly. So I'll have to come out here and again apply some of the weed killer to that. Hardy geranium, that's Roxanne. And oh my God, look at these bearded irises. These were irises that were on the property. They were actually in the backyard. And if you can see the little clump that's right there in the back, they were originally there. And I dug a few up and moved them over here many years ago. And they're really living their life. They look fantastic. Peony starting to bud up. The ants are having their little holiday. This too was a little bit of a seedling that was growing in the garden. It was actually along this fence line. There were a lot of hedges, privet hedges along this side of the yard back then. And I just happened to spot the little, what I thought was a peony, and I dug it up and I planted it over here, and it's been pretty happy ever since. Over here, I have, back in here, you see I have the Verbena bonariensis, and there's some that have seeded up front here, so I'll dig these out and move them back or move them somewhere in the back of the yard. On this side, everything has really leafed out nicely. This is a beauty berry called Pearl Glam. It's from Proven Winners. Late blooming tulips. These are Queen of the Nights. These usually bloom a little bit later, but I think because of the crazy weather we've had this year, it seems like they're blooming just a little early. Beautiful dark blue, or excuse me, dark purple blooms. A lot of weeding that needs to be done around here. I haven't done any of that. Really interested to see this. This is, I can't think of the name of it. So this is a Baptisia that I planted last year. I thought I have to look at my tags. I forget what variety it is, but that's a Baptisia. There's one a little further down. I have about 3 of them in the garden. So in this area, I have a lot of salvia. I did dig quite a few up in the fall just to thin this out a bit. But there's a lot of seedlings that have popped up, which is really great, but I'm going to dig these up and move them to some other areas. You see there's one there. They've spread over here. There's one back there. So I am going to come through and dig some of these seedlings up and maybe just pot them up for a while and then figure out where to plant them. So here, and here I have the Rose Marble salvia. And then this is the Queen Violet salvia. We have Boom Chocolata, which is a hardy geranium, back in black sedum. So these leaves will start out a lighter green in the spring, and then by the summer they'll be a really dark, almost black color. This little rose right here has been on the struggle bus for a couple of years. This is an Oh So Easy rose from Proven Winners, and I had it on the other side of the yard. I thought it was too much shade. I moved it here, and it's just really been struggling. So this, I don't know, it may have to go after this year. There's another Baptisia, the Blueberry Sundae. I think this will be the first year Actually, I think the other one is the blueberry sundae as well. So this is the first year that I'll see these bloom. A few more salvia. This area last year is where I had all of my garden vegetable grow bags, and so I decided to try to organize it a little bit better this year. So I took all of my blueberry bushes and they've been potted up. So this is kind of my blueberry corner. And if you look closely, you'll see they all have a few blooms. This one has quite a few. So it looks like I'll probably get a decent crop of blueberries this year. It's been a really weird spring with all of the warm weather and then frost. So I'm really fortunate just to have anything left. So I was able to take some of the existing flagstone that I had in the garden and create this walkway. And to the right of the walkway is where I have all of my grow bags. So right now, I basically have onions. I have two varieties, Walla Walla. And then I also have a red onion. And then right here, this is the collard green that I've potted up. Back here we have potatoes. So these are Yukon Gold potatoes. But I wanted to create this little walkway where I have the vegetables on the right-hand side, and then in front I'm going to plant a bunch of annuals. And all of these stones and rocks that you see are all things that were already on the property, and I've just been reusing them in different spaces over the years. So I did plant out my lobelia Crystal Palace, and it got hit by 2 waves of frost. So I see a little bit of green in some of these, so I'll come through and trim them back. Unfortunately, I do have some more plants, so I'll plant this up with more of the lobelia as well as some other plants, just to have a little annual bed in front of the vegetables. And right here we have Royal Raindrops crabapple. I was really disappointed. I mean, the tree is looking wonderful, but I was really disappointed. It did bloom, but it only had a few blooms. And I think that was because of the funny weather that we've had. It's been cold and it's been 80 degrees and we have a light freeze. So it didn't really bloom very well this spring. If you take a look, you can see I've gone through and I've done all of the edging of the bed. So I've created this path between the garden bed and then the center kidney bed that I created last spring. Now last year I primarily planted this up with annuals, so there's not going to be a lot that's going to come back. Over here we have the irises. This is the original clump of irises that was here when I bought the property. I did dig a few up and move those over to the side of the house, and the ones on the side are doing better than the original clump. And then last fall I dug a few up to move over to this side, because ultimately I'm going to create a little path through this, which is an arbor that I recently purchased off of Amazon. It was under $100, so reasonably priced. So I'm going to have a little pathway. I have to figure out what materials I'm going to use for that pathway, but I really needed a way to get from the front half of the backyard to the rear without having to walk around this way every time. So this has become a little bit of a shortcut. So this bed still needs to be kind of weeded a little bit. There's a few things that have come back. There's a clump of yarrow that's there. Right there. I think those are, it's Nepeta. cat's meow. There's a couple salvias. And everything else that you see there that's green is the lesser celandine, which is the invasive weed that I mentioned in another video. So most of it I've dug out by hand. I have used an herbicide in some cases, but I've tried to dig most of it up by hand. Another addition that I'm going to make to this bed, I'm going to put a little fountain here. This is a bowl that I bought last winter and never really used. Got a great deal on this from a nursery that was going out of business. So I'll take you along for that project when it's time to set it up. Let's continue along our path. This is the area where I think we're going to have a little storage shed sometime in the future, TBD. This area in the back is just really kind of a bit of a dumping ground of plants that I'm not sure what I'm going to do with. I've planted a few trees that are doing well. Weeping Alaskan cedar, the Japanese maple, so pretty. I think I need to come through and do a little bit of pruning. I'm seeing some dead pieces here that I think could be pruned off, so I'll come out and do that. And I did underplant this, or try to, with the creeping Jenny. It looked like that piece died there, but there's still two there, so hopefully that will fill in as the summer goes on. This is the juniper. I think this is about its third year. It seems to be enjoying its time here, so I'm really happy with how this has grown. It's grown quite a bit. Very pretty. This is the gold-threaded cypress. This is another one that seems to be really enjoying its life in this spot. And it's really bright. It can be, at least in the morning, it can be pretty dark in this area, and this is a nice bright plant or shrub to have in this area. Still some cleanup that needs to be done around here, but we have some of the spring plants that have popped up. This is another one that's just, it just glows. So think about that when you have shaded areas. These gold or plants can really brighten up. That's a bleeding heart. There's another bleeding heart, and these will die back in the heat of the summer. They won't be here, so you can plant these areas up with other things. There's still some cleanup that still needs to happen there. There's a miscanthus maiden grass. This is a clump that came from the original clump that you see right there. Lamian. Beautiful silvery foliage, pretty purple flowers. Nice plant for the shade. These are all weeds. These will all have to be hand pulled, so this is still an area that I have to get to. One of my faves, this is totally tangerine geum. We have hardy geraniums. This is a Midnight Masquerade penstemon, and you can see it has started to seed itself around a bit, which is really great. There was also some back here which I did dig up. There's still a few that I didn't get, but I dug some up and I potted them up into a planter until I can figure out what to do with them. These are daylilies, the Stella d'Oro daylilies. There's yarrow, more daylilies. There's the other penstemon, Midnight Masquerade. And you can see it has seeded itself. Another hydrangea, daylily. This is the very first Baptisia that I planted. This is lemon meringue, so it's been here for about 3 years. I bought this as a clearance plant several years ago for about $10. And then right here we have, I can never remember the name of this plant. Wait a minute. Columbine. And they're starting to bloom. And then we have a weed growing in the middle. So this side still needs a little bit of work. These are some hostas that have been here for many, many years. Still need to clean this area a little bit, cut back the fern. Again, get some of those weeds out of there. And then the deck garden bed. The knockout roses are knockouts. This right here, these are lamb's ears that I started from seed a few years ago, and they're just loving their life here. So I'm going to have to cut these back a bit. There's a little bit more salvia there. There's a heuchera right here. There's actually two of them. They've been here for quite a while. They're not doing very well. I'm going to move these maybe to the front bed, I think. And hopefully they'll like that a little bit better. And look what we have here. We're getting a few buds. That's a lilac bush. I don't know the variety. It's been in this pot for about 3 years, and it gets bigger every year and continues to bloom. I'm really going to start thinking about finding a place for this in the garden bed so that it's not in this pot forever, because I think it's going to have to be moved up to a bigger pot pretty soon. And plus, this pot has really started to suffer from being out during the winter. You can see where this has broken off. So the freeze thaw has not been good for this pot. So that'll be one of the things on my list this year, is to figure out exactly where I'd like to plant that. So one thing I forgot to show you with the arbor that I'm adding. As I mentioned before, I have to figure out some type of little pathway to put through here. But my larger vision is to have roses that will grow up over the arbor. And for this year, I budgeted for 2 roses. And I have the first one. This is New Dawn. And my idea was that I would have New Dawn, one on each side, one here, and then I could plant one there. But then I got the bright idea to actually plant 2 different roses and have them intertwine as they go up the arbor. So I have the New Dawn, and there's another one called Wallerton Old Hall, and it's a David Austin rose, and I think I'm going to get that and have the 2 intertwine. Since I only budgeted for 2 roses this year, I think I'll plant 1 of each on this side for this year. And then next year, I'll get the other 2 to plant on the other side. Now, I don't know if I'm going to be able to dig in this area. There used to be 2 large trees here. One was right here, and then there was another one about right there. So there's one was there, and then there was another large tree right about in this space. So I don't know how the digging is going to be. So if I'm not able to actually dig a hole for the roses, I'll have to grow them in pots. Well, thanks for joining me on this garden update and walk. And I hope you're able to get out into your garden today. Enjoy the rest of your day. Happy gardening.